Coming up in today's video, we're thermalising foxes as we get up close and personal to some very big charlies.
Your bugger, he's huge, isn't he?
Plus, I give my top tips for shooting off of sticks. Welcome everybody, this is Team Foxer.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the channel. Do you like my new neck warmer? Team Foxer. Doubles up as a pretty good face mask, as well as keeping your neck nice and warm while you're out shooting. If you want to get hold of these, just go to the shop section on the YouTube channel. You should also see some pop-ups for the Team Foxer merchandise just below. Before we crack on with the foxing action, I've been spending a little bit of time in the woods today prepping my next squirrel hide. The farmer has kindly donated a potato box and cut a slat in it for me, and I've just covered it in camo netting and positioned it a good distance from the feeder, and I'm hoping to be back here filming on the squirrels within the next week or two, so hopefully you can catch that video fairly soon. But while I was here, I wanted to answer a couple of questions that come up quite frequently. If you don't want to see my top tips for shooting off of sticks, then please skip to this time down below to get straight on with the foxing action. So, shooting off sticks. These are my two sticks here. This is my now spare set, if you like. This is the Primos trigger sticks Gen 2 with what's known as a V yoke. And this here is the Primos trigger sticks Gen 3. I'll just wait for that jet to finish fucking about. Go and play with the Russians, please. And these sticks here are my Primos trigger sticks Gen 3. With the Nate Vision saddle on top. If you followed the channel, you probably would have seen this clamp in action quite a bit over the last few months. So I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with the Primos trigger sticks. The trigger itself deploys the legs silently, and as soon as they hit the ground, they stop. So if you're on uneven ground, and this is really where these sticks come into their own. Shooting off of uneven ground, they're quick to deploy, both silent, and you can get into a multitude of positions with this. Anyway, tip number one. I always like to walk around with my sticks deployed at a height roughly equal to that of where I know I'm going to be shooting from. Simply because when you open the legs and you pull the trigger, the legs don't have to fall very far and you can be quick and on them. If you have the legs too short, okay, it might make it a tiny bit easier to carry, but you then have to deploy the legs and wait. Legs deployed now. So it's all about saving vital seconds with that first tip. Tip number two when shooting from sticks would be, and this is a mistake I made quite a lot in the early days of shooting off of sticks, I always thought that having the V yoke as far forward as I could would make it more stable. And it kind of does to a degree. However, I've had better luck, putting it more in the middle. So I'd say where the rifle's pivot point is. Because actually it makes it more stable there. There's less wobble involved. With here, you've got more action here. I found even my heartbeat was controlling a little bit of movement in the stick. So placing the rifle further back towards the centre of gravity is probably the best place to have your rifle sticks mounted. Tip number three is your stance. So once you've deployed your sticks, you've got your rifle on, you don't want to be standing with your feet too close together. It's going to create wobble and you're not stable. You need to lower your centre of gravity. You don't want a really wide stance because you then end up straining your hip joints and moving around unnecessarily. So what you really want to do is go probably just a smidgen above shoulder width apart, so a fairly wide stance, get that centre of gravity low and get your knees locked out and get nice and firm. And tip number four, if you can get hold of something similar to the Nate Vision clamp, here, this is the limited edition Team Foxer one. I'm hoping to have another run of these coming in fairly soon. If you would like one, please read the details in this video's description. So yeah, tip number four is, if you can, rather than use the V yoke, use a saddle clamp. Now the reason for that is quite straightforward. It's all about surface area. The larger the surface area on your rifle, the bigger the contact patch, the more stable it will be. Now it does have its advantages and disadvantages. The biggest advantage is stability. When that rifle goes in, put it into your centre of gravity and tighten it up sufficiently. The rifle will stay there of its own fruition. You can then use both hands, as I do, and as you've probably seen in videos, to be able to scan around with a thermal. It's still got enough play in it for you to be able to move around and rock. Yeah, but let's put that down a bit. But I've spoken to numerous people now who all agree that shooting using a clamp of this nature makes for more stable shooting. It's really as simple as that. What it avoids, if I just take that out a second, move those over to the side. What it avoids is a little bit of this rocking motion, because you've got a flat base. Therefore, the rifles, which is fairly flat on its underside it's fairly flat on this underside of this Boyd stock anyway. It sits nice and flat in the saddle, and again, it just eliminates that little bit of rocking motion. And of course, that tiny bit of motion here, times that by 120 yards or whatever, makes it quite awkward. Now, the furthest I've shot off sticks to date is about 230 yards, and that's a long shot to take off of sticks. So just a very quick recap: don't always carry your sticks around too short. Yeah, roughly have them a similar length to where you're going to shoot from. Therefore, when you deploy the legs, it's nice and quick. Number two, get the rifle's centre balance pretty much on that pivotal point to make it more stable when you're holding the rifle. Number three, body position. So get your body fairly wide stance, not too close to the sticks, you know, a good distance here. I've probably got about 1.5 foot. Pivotal point on the rifle, so you're nice and stable to be able to take that shot even at longer ranges. And tip number four, if you can, increase the surface area the rifle sits on, again adding to stability. Well, there we go. There's a couple of top tips for you there for shooting off of sticks. I hope you found those useful. Let's crack on with the foxing action.
Well, the first port of call is a solo mission. I was here a few weeks ago beating for this farm, and a fox ran out. Well, in fact, two foxes ran out on two different drives. They nailed one of them, but there is still one at large, so we're going to see if we can account for that one tonight. It's going to be a mixture, really, of walking and stalking in a couple of places, and possibly pulling up and having a call at some likely spots. Now, I wouldn't recommend driving and scanning around out on public roads, but here on the farm roads, which I know fairly intimately, and going at relatively low speed, it's not so much of a problem. It is also, though, quite difficult to sometimes see what it is you're looking at as you're driving, so it's often a good idea to stop and confirm. Here I actually see a fox probably a good 400 yards away. So we will see if we can call this one in. I'll get out very gingerly and close the door just to make sure that me moving around and the light from the mirror there hasn't spooked it. But as you can see, there's our Charlie, and it is getting on for 400 yards away, just the other side of this field here. Time to get the rifle out and see if we can call it in. Now, I wouldn't normally put the caller on the roof and try and draw the fox straight towards me. However, it's quite a late session, this one. It's already gone 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's a sharp frost, as you'll see in a second. So walking on the grass for me to go and put the caller out left or right is going to be quite noisy, so I don't want to draw unnecessary attention to me. So I'll select my call and just see if we can entice it in a little closer for the shot. So we'll start off with one of my favourite calls, Pheasant Distress, here on the Architect GC500. And there you can see that frost already well settled in on the top of the truck there. The fox showed no initial interest and actually disappeared into the woods behind, where we saw it a little earlier. But it is worth giving it a few minutes or even trying different calls before moving on. So I'll get the rifle set up on the sticks and continue to scan around just in case I have a fox coming in from either the right or the left. Well, as I was driving along, I was fairly convinced I'd spotted a fox quite some way off, walking down the dyke side, actually the next farm over, on the farm I was working at before Christmas. But I threw on a couple of the calls, and fortunately nothing came in. So we'll go on to the next location, see if we can catch up with one there. And indeed we do. This one here sitting a mere 50 yards just out into the first field. I gave it a whistle, a shout. Eventually it stopped and we were able to take this one down.
Got you.
Now that could well have been the same fox, because it was actually on the next farm over and in the direction that that fox went to. But for a solo mission, that's not a bad start.
There's got to be a dog. There's a chunky monkey. We do like to breed them big around here.
Moving on now, and this is actually a session myself and Rick had pre-Christmas. We didn't see any foxes early doors, we were out early enough, but what we did see was some rats hanging around the feeder. The plan was to come back here and shoot these rats with a 2.2 LR, but with myself falling ill with COVID early January, that never came to pass. We did see a fox a little later on, around just after 10 o'clock. This fox here was spotted in the dyke. I tried squeaking it in with the best fox call mouth caller, but it wasn't paying any attention. As you can see here, it's actually moving away. So I then switch over to the electronic caller. Again, it's on the roof in front of me, which is far from ideal, but what I ended up having to do was use the rodent distress call to get it coming in. So almost 5 minutes after being initially spotted and playing around with the different calls to catch its attention, once it finally decided it was coming in, it was fairly well committed. As you'll see in just a second, I had some trouble actually stopping it.
Hey!
There's some reeds coming up, you watch him stop behind them.
Oi! Okay, you want to stop? Hey? Oh, yeah, he is a clonker, isn't he? You bugger. No, he knew the score. You bugger, he's huge, isn't he? Yeah.
I wasn't convinced that the size of this would be portrayed, especially next to Richard, so I took a picture with it for reference, and at almost 20 pounds in weight, that was a pretty big fox. The next night out, we had a couple more. This one here, pretty much the exact same time as the one we shot the previous night in a different location. I didn't get the shot on film, so this is Rick here retrieving this one for us. This one was a small vixen. Moving on to another location, and as we exit the farm, or pretty much just about exit the farm, not only do we bump these lovely looking roe deer, I also spot a fox out of Rick's side. So I quickly get out and go across the bonnet and see if I can pick it up. As you can see there, it's so much easier to spot things with a thermal than it is through MV unless it's looking at you, but I do know that looks like the back end of a fox. As Rick's telling me through the thermal, it looks like it's just caught something.
Can't be far away from here. Get my other torch out a minute. The old Seeker Pro out. Woo, daylight. Ah, on it, I was nearly on it. It's gotta be a vixen. Turn that off a minute now. Gotta be a vixen. Yep, we just had the dog up the road. Cracking looking vixen. Which, almost perfect shot placement right here. Now, Rick said she just caught something. Look at that, look. She just... I bet that rat was digging there. Bit manky. And I bet... Yeah. She just had that... She just had that rat out of that hole, look. Good sized rat. Good looking vixen.
Skipping back now to some footage again pre-Christmas, this time with the gamekeeper. We called in this barn owl as we were out looking for foxes. Now we did spot a fox, but unfortunately we're the wrong side of the farm here, so we need to go into the farm to catch up with it.
When your key fob battery goes flat and you go to turn the alarm off in the farm. Whoops.
Now, very fortunately for us, the fox was still in the vicinity, so I was able to call it in through this ploughed field, although all of a sudden it goes far left and walks straight in a very deep thorough, so I could only just see the top part of the fox. But it's getting close, so I need to take the shot.
Yeah, you come right up this thorough. He nearly disappeared because it's pretty deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
What you have done before, haven't you? Yeah. That's right, it was only 55 yards. Well, I wanted to get him in close. He was coming anyway, so I reckon it's him. Dark. It's alright, isn't it?
Very good.
7:30 in the evening.
I've now got a few clips sent over from Mark, who's not actually featured for a little while now, so just before we sign out, please enjoy these clips filmed with his night sight Eagle Artec and the Hauer 1500, also in 223.
Hey! 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 Wow.
Nice one, Mark. Some great shooting there. Now, on the way home from my late foxing session, I bump into this one that ran across the road and proceeded to just mooch around in this person's garden. I even had time to get the camcorder out. Typical that, eh? Never mind, it'll be around for next time.
Thank you very much for watching. Take care, stay safe, and as always, happy shooting. I'll catch you in the next one.